Jesus' name, amen. Well, today we have a couple of special guests with us. I would go so far, actually, as to say that these are Abundant Springs favorites. This is our missionaries, Gary and Kathy Heinrichs. They are our missionaries to the jungles of Costa Rica. I was telling them last night as we were having dinner together at my place that that's the way that they need to introduce themselves. You know, in the past, we'll be like, yeah, Gary and Kathy Heinrichs are missionaries to Costa Rica. And when I've mentioned that to people before, they've been like, oh, that's a good posting. That's the kind of place that you want to be. Like, you guys are basically supporting a vacation, right? It's like, no. No. They're in the jungles. They're way back there. They're toughing it out. You know, they're getting bit by mosquitoes and all kinds of stuff, and riding on boats that are gonna flip over and kill them one day if the Lord wasn't protecting them, all that kind of stuff. And so I don't want to take their presentation from them because I actually haven't seen it, but we're just trusting the Lord for good things with Gary and Kathy. If they want to come up, why don't we give them a hand as they come up to tell us a little bit about what the Lord has been using them to do.
Well, praise the Lord. How many of you know us and have met us before? Quite a few of you. That's good. So about 50-50. That's excellent. So as Pastor was saying, yeah, we're the missionaries. You're missionaries in Costa Rica. And we work in an area called Talamanca. And that is with the indigenous people. It's the Bribri and the Quebecer, not Canadian Quebecers, but the Costa Rican Quebecers. And you can see, Pastor showed me this little neat pointer here. But right here in this little area here, Puerto Limon, in that area, right against the Panama border, is where we work. In fact, we can leave our house, and within 15 minutes of driving time, we can be at the river that separates Panama and Costa Rica, and we can chuck a rock at the Panamanians over on the other side. And they throw rocks back at us. No, not really. But we can literally be there in 15 minutes. We can be in Panama. They are known as mountain people because they live in the mountains of Costa Rica from the Caribbean side all along the Panama border to the Pacific side is all where the predominantly is where the indigenous live in the mountains. And so many of them, they have an estimate of how many indigenous people live in the mountains, but it's not 100% how many because they have their children at home and they don't know. And so there is a lot of them. And we're always surprised at the love and the hospitality that they have. They're actually our second family. And when we leave, if I don't cry, we were praying. They were praying for us, and the presbyter, which we're showing a little bit, Rigoberto, started crying, and it was the first time he had ever done that. And it was like my brother. Never mind. It's terrible. What a baby.
It's okay. It's
unexpected.
Okay. So I have a prayer card here, and anybody can have one. It just is a reminder for you guys to pray. And I don't know if you noticed, but this map is a little bit different than that map, which I've not seen before, I don't think. Puerto Limon is in the province of Limon. It's an actual port. We now have cruise ships that come in again. Didn't have that for a while after COVID, but it's about 45 minutes from our house. So we don't live in Puerto Limon. We live in Hone Creek. So we live within an hour to 2 hour radius of all the places that we work. We used to drive the 5 hours over, and then we would stay the few nights with pastors. And while that sounds really fun, sometimes it cannot be fun. And so it's really nice to be able to come home and sleep in your own bed and still, do your job and work. So we want to say thank you to Pastor Stephen and Embry for hosting us in their home. They've done that several times, actually, and so we always enjoy getting to catch up with their kids and all. And I mean, that doesn't always happen. That's not always an invitation. And so you have some really good pastors here that are very hospitable.
Yeah, and so Joshua's excellent, their oldest son. When I first came, I came by myself many, many years ago. Joshua was only about that big, I think. And he offered me his bed. And it was a tiny thing. But I got in it. And I think he had stars on the ceiling, glow-in-the-dark stars. It was awesome. And now I love it even more that he's bigger because his bed's bigger. So it works great. So he gave up his bed last night for us, and it was wonderful. So thanks, Joshua.
And a little bit about who we are. We're based out of Edmonton. We have a home in Edmonton that we rent out to some good tenants. And so we have 4 adult children. ranging from Chelsea's 35. She has 4 children, her and her husband, Mark. Paige just had a new baby, so they have 3 little girls, and her husband, Matt. And she's 2 years younger than Chelsea. Josh is 27. He's a fireman / medic in Sherwood Park. And they're expecting their first baby in July, end of July. And then Nicholas, our baby, I said he was 23 for 2 years. I told people he was 23. And his birthday was the 29th of September, and I sent him a message, and I said, Nick, I've just been doing the math, and you're 25. And he's like, yeah, Mom. And I said, because he doesn't follow us around, right? He doesn't know what we're saying. So I said, I've been telling people for 2 years you're 23. And he's like, whatever, So, yeah, he's the baby. So now we're up to 17 people and 3 dogs.
18 in July.
Yeah, so we're a big family when we get all together. Barely fit in anybody's house now. So the Lord's blessed us, and we're thankful.
Amen. So let me see if this will work here. Next slide. Oh, okay. Is that it? Yeah. So this is some pictures here. We had our very first pastoral conference, like a leadership conference in Alto Talamanca. It was the first one ever there. Pastor Murray Colin and his wife Patricia came to do the seminar, and it went really, really well. They were so blessed to hear leadership being spoken into their lives and things that they could apply to their churches and to their ministry. And it just raised the level and the bar up. The reason why it was so significant, maybe some of you are thinking, well, big deal, we have those here. They have them in Costa Rica too, but they have never had one in the jungles of Costa Rica. So usually when a guest speaker comes to Costa Rica, they'll hit the big cities and the surrounding areas where it's nice. But we said, no, we want one specifically for our people that we minister to, the indigenous. And so Pastor Murray and Pat said, we're going to come and we're going to do specially for your people. And so Patricia was a little bit nervous because there are mosquitoes and snakes and all kinds of things that you hear on TV and stuff. The mosquitoes, you're always going to get bit. Snakes, not so much. We make sure there's none of that around. But she was a little nervous, but she did everything so wonderful. Riding in the dugout canoes, all of that. And so the people just ate it up. And so we were just so blessed to be able to put this on for them.
We did it every day for a week, every weekday. So we asked pastors before we put it on. Now, mind you, they work. And so in their plantations and their farms, some of them work for other people. And so we said, when can we do this? And they chose the afternoons, and so we said, sure, we can do that. And we had a limited amount of time because we had to get back on the bus to get back up the river before dark. You don't want to be in the dark on the river, and it's always dark around 6 o'clock, so we had to move it. But by the end of the week, we had 58 pastors and core workers, and then all of the women. Pastor Pat said, I'll take the women, and so we had translators. We can translate, but it's just a lot easier if we're doing the behind-the-scene work. So it was just a wonderful conference, and they said to us later, oh, we wish we could have just had more, and I thought, well, you picked the time, and so I think they were a little bit leery because they didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but they really enjoyed it, so I think we'll do it again this coming year. It was in January. It was perfect. It was the perfect time to do it. And they're so hungry for leadership training. They really are. How to run a church, how to, so many things within pastoring that nobody ever says to them, well, how about try this?
It is quite dangerous also to be riding in the canoes up and down the rivers. So the river ride going up is 30 minutes, and then the bus ride. But during this time, there was rainy season as well. But like Kathy said, the weather was so great that it did rain in the morning sometimes, but when we got into the canoes, there was no rain. It was beautiful. And then it would rain during the session, and then it would stop raining for our return trip. So it's just amazing because even if let's say it started raining really hard and you're in the canoe, well, where do you go? These are tropical downpours, and even if you have a poncho on, you're soaking wet before you get to your destination. So the Lord just provided that so amazingly that there'd be no rain or anything. I think, where are we at? Here. Did hit it again, or do I do it? Should work now? Nope. Let's see here. Nope, video's not working. You want the video? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Not that one.
The river.
Not that one, the river.
Go back to the river, yeah. Sorry.
Back one more. So that one right there is a video. I don't know if it'll play or not, but it just shows us going up, and the river's quite high. You can see that it's muddy. So this is called the Sixola River, and the Sixola divides Costa Rica from Panama, but up towards the top of the jungle, all the tributaries come into it. So they have a whole bunch of different names. So when Kathy and I go in on our motorcycle, we have to put our motorcycles, they have a little dock, and you ride your motorcycle into the dugout canoe like this, and you go across that river, and you get out, and you do that however many rivers it takes to get to your destination. And so each time it's a little nerve-wracking because you actually sit on your motorcycle, you put your feet on the sideboards of the canoe, and the canoe will move back and forth like this, like your legs are going back and forth, but the motorcycle stays straight up and down. It never moves. It really is kind of freaky. The first time I did it, right, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going in the river with my motorcycle. And so one time on the bank, on the shore, I actually got a little off balance trying to get onto the motorcycle. The motorcycle fell over in the canoe. It didn't go out, but I went into the river. So then I show up at my destination, and Pastor Rigoberto is like, wow, are you having troubles today? Because I was just soaking wet, right? He goes, I bet you fell in the water. I said, I did. So the next one. Yeah, that's also another video there, but it would show, you can kind of see back up in there, this would come closer, but it shows how they bring the plantains out of the jungle, and they fill up these canoes that are about 4 feet wide. Sometimes they're 25 feet long. They dig them out of one solid tree, and the canoes will be maybe 3 inches out of the water because that's how heavy they are with the plantains that they bring in and out of the jungle. And so they'll bring it down to the beach shore, and they'll sell it there. Chiquita or Dole will come pick them up in the big trucks and haul them away. And so that's predominantly what they do for a living. They're hardworking people. These bananas are, they don't carry them out in the hands, but they're called ramas. I don't know what you'd say in English, but they're the full stem of bananas. And they probably weigh between 50 to 70, 80 pounds. And the way that they do is they put those on their backs, and they hike them out of the jungle to a roadway, and then transport them to the river, and then from the river down. So it's quite a big thing to get in and out. So the next slide. So next we want to talk to you a little bit about lepeta. Lepeta means the pear. But in lepeta, there are no pear trees, so we don't understand why it's called lepeta at all. But this is our church plant. So last year we projected 3 church plants. This year our projection is 3 as well. And so this is one of them, a carryover from last year. And this is going in to the jungle. On the left side of the video there is the river Sixola, and those mountains on that far side there is Panama. And so this is our journey. The road is actually pretty good today. You just finished grading it, so we're pretty happy on that. Usually it's a 4-wheel drive, big potholes, like our roads in Edmonton, really. And so not much different. So
this is Lepeta Church, and Pastor Chamo and his wife, Pastor Chapita, and we went for a service. This is a community that there's a little Catholic church that they kind of come Christmas time, maybe Easter. They don't really have anything going. So Pastor Chamo, there's no water up here. So every time they build and whatever, like they have to haul water in, and it's quite a sacrifice. But he has a great vision to feed the elderly and also the children, and then kind of a homework program for the children that are there. And so we're just thankful, to be part of it. And this is a 3-way. Usually we do 50-50, the church and us. The church needs to raise their funds because we're not going to give them just, here you go, let's build you something. And so they have to work at it as well. But this particular one, the district, us, and the church are working together to build the church.
So you can see here, like Kathy's saying, Chamo, and it's we built all the trusses there. They didn't know how to build those trusses. They built in a different way. And one day they surprised me. They said, Gary, can you show us how to build trusses? So I'm like, sure. So the whole time I'm helping them build these trusses, they're sitting there. So they want me to build them. I'm building them. I'm teaching them how to build them. And the whole time they're saying, this is not going to work. This is ridiculous. So I'm like, well, why don't you just be a little bit more encouraging? Like, this is going to be great. You haven't even seen them yet. So we stood them up, and as soon as we stood them up, the light bulb went on, and they went, oh, We get it now. And so now everybody wants these trusses built all over the jungle. And so it's really a lot of fun bringing leadership training to them, not just in construction, but we can use those construction metaphors and carry them into the spiritual too, and talk about how it's important to have good structure in your Christian walk and things like that. And so those are all kinds of things, discussions that we'll have as we're building with them. So they might open a service. Let's see if some of you can say it. Sibu Be Kime. God bless you. That's what that means in Bribri. So we're learning a little bit at a time. It's a difficult language, and so we're trying to connect with them in that way a little bit. And they laugh, and then they whip out their best English on us, and we say, "Well, that's close to," and then we have a big laugh as well. And so it is a lot of fun going back and forth.
In Spanish.
What's that?
We communicate in Spanish.
Yeah, we communicate in Spanish for sure, but they like to. They'll all be huddled around, especially in this church, and they'll be like, shoo, 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 shoo. And so then I'll walk up and say, oh, yeah, Bashkena, Bashkena, which means hello, hello. And they'll be like, and then Chamo, the pastor there, he'll be, that's all he knows. And then they start laughing, right? so at first they're shocked. He knows how to speak Bribri? And no, he doesn't. He's just making that stuff up, so.
So I feel like for those of you that don't know who we are, we need to explain that they would say that we are pastors to the pastors in the indigenous area. So we do not have our own church. We do not start our own churches because we don't want to take the best people from all the churches that they have. We're there to encourage them. We're there to help them build. We're there to help, maybe they need a remodel. We have bathrooms all over the place that we've worked on. Sometimes, almost everywhere we go, they need a classroom. They need kids' classroom. And so we're working on that. We are an encouragement to the pastors. We're the ones behind the scene, cheering them on. What can we help you with to make your job not easier, but better? What can we do to help you? So that's who we are. We're not just building churches to go pastor a bunch of churches. That's not what we do.
No, we pass that off to them and then train them and equip them. And as you'll see a little bit later, this church let's see if it's the next picture here. Yeah, they're very hardworking people. For instance, how many women in here, you guys are really tough? Raise your hand. How tough are you? You're tough? Okay, yeah. She has to be. She's married to me, so just says snap the whip. These women, so there's no water here. So we have a pitcher. They're about this big in the pitcher. Way down at the bottom of the hill, there's a creek, and their containers are about that big, like that. And they would fill those up with water, and the women would go and do that. And then to get them up on the hill, they would pick those up and put them on their shoulders and pack them up the hill all day long so that we could pour the concrete for the floors. And one of the women was pregnant. So we're talking some tough. I was looking at them, I'm like, man, and I made the joke. I said, I do not ever want to make you guys angry with me. And they'd crack up laughing because they would take you. The same church too, we were working there, and I was showing them in the next day. They worked me hard enough to where I had blisters all over my hands, and some of them were a little bit bloody. And I said, look at what you did to me. You worked me like a dog. I'm broken up. And they said, oh, Gary, they said, you showed up to work with the hands of a woman, and you're leaving with the hands of a man now. And I went, oh, thank you. So the pity party was over instantly.
So also, I don't know what's next. I can't remember. We usually have the iPad here.
I'll do it.
So we left with Pastor Chamo. He's in the middle there. Just before we left, a few days before we were scheduled to leave, we went up because we needed to go buy some more material, and we needed to measure for the cement and all that kind of stuff. And so this is the church is in the front by the road, and then the fellowship hall is behind that. Then the kitchen, and then the bathroom. And so we left with all intentions of them. They're going to keep working, and they do. And so this morning we got a message. Yesterday was their once-a-month meeting that they have within the district. And so this morning we got a message very early in the morning, ping, ping, on WhatsApp.
5 o'clock.
And the presbyter of the area said, okay, we're working on Tuesday and Thursday. How many are coming? We need to know for food-wise, because they're going to do 2 days of pouring cement in all of this. So other pastors from other churches in the zone come and they help. We've promoted for the longest time. You know, in the United States and in Canada, there's people who, the Mennonites and the Amish, and they work together and they build a barn in a weekend. And they're like, yeah, we used to be like that. And so we've witnessed, the last time they did this, to pour the floor in the actual church part of it, 22 people showed up. Yep. And I was concerned.
Five different churches.
I said, I think there's too many people. Like, you don't want people standing around. Gary said, leave them alone. They know what they're doing, and they do. And they mix all of that up by hand, all that cement. They've got younger guys pulling the wheelbarrow kind of up the hill. It's an amazing way that they work, and so that's this week.
Yeah. They also had a church service a couple nights ago, 2 nights ago. And the place was packed out. This side, too, they put chairs up in the dirt side, and then they filled the church up in the front side, too. So it was exciting. And 6 people received Jesus Christ that night. So it was exciting to see that the church is already seeing souls being saved. And that's the point, right? It's not the church or anything else. It's the souls that are won for Jesus.
And I can report, once again, the bathrooms. We have a church in Edmonton. The pastor reminded us the other day, we went to visit him, and he says, so, he's from Africa. He goes, so, our church people are so interested in the toilets for Talamanca. And I said, oh, yeah, I remember you guys did that. And so this right here is a blessing to me, because I was raised in a small town. I have bathroom skills for the outhouse and, the bush and whatever. But to me, to have a toilet not running water. They have to catch the water up there, the rainwater. But just to have bathrooms is a terrific thing. Now, what you can't see is that toilet is not against the wall. It's about this far from it. And I went in and I went to use the bathroom. I was like, okay, that's different. And I came out and asked Gary, now what happened? And he goes, I don't know. They probably just said, yeah, we think the hole is right here. And it's like a ways from, the wall, but hey, it works. Yeah. So we have 2 bathrooms on the other side and a shower, so we can have a team there, which is a blessing.
So if you guys ever come with a team, how many of you women are thankful that there's a bathroom? Amen? Yeah. Otherwise, you have to go.
Main question.
But, it is the jungle. There's lots of trees. So So the next thing we would like to share with you is our Bible Institute that's been going on pretty much from the day we showed up there. And it is exciting. This is more the foundational, the more formal training of our pastors and leaders and the people in the community. They will come and learn God's scriptures. When we first showed up there, they were like preaching their testimony, which is not a bad thing. But then they would, if the service went on for, let's say, an hour, they preached their sermon twice, their testimony. And then you'd come back at the night service, and it'd be your testimony again, but in a different way. And so it just keeps going that way. And we were like, hey, the Bible's great big. There's so many things in the Bible that you can preach. It's amazing. And so we started the Bible Institute, or came along the Bible Institute of Costa Rica, and started implementing these things. And now their messages are they're fantastic. I'm just so proud of them. And their message, they have points, they have intros, they have all these kind of things that Steve and I learned at the Bible College. And it's just amazing to see them. And they feel so confident in their ability to preach God's word.
So in Costa Rica, we're under the Assemblies of God of Costa Rica. They are our covering to be in the country. And so the Bible Institute is through them. You used to have to go to the city and live at the Bible College, but not everybody can do that. So now they have what do you call them? They're like classrooms. I can only satellite classrooms, right? I'm only thinking Spanish at the moment. And so it's been a blessing. This year we have 50 students around that, and at the end of the year we have, I'm not exactly sure, 4 or 6 that are going to graduate. Our last graduation was in 2022, the first 5 from Talamanca, and some of those pastors have been taking classes for 20 years. 20 years it took them to finish. Now, mind you, it's 1 class a week. So in Pastor Lydia's church, she has 2 classes, so they meet Sunday night and Monday night, which is a big sacrifice, financially and time-wise, because they work 6 days a week and have 1 day off. So those that have a family, they get up early and work. They go to work like 4 in the morning, so there's not a lot of time to study. And so, you get home and you're tired and you go to bed. So we're excited. At the end of the year, probably January, we'll have a graduation for the next batch that are coming along.
They're very committed. Like Kathy said, the one was studying for 20 years. We also had a student who has since then purchased a motorcycle. But before that, he would walk 4.5 hours out of the mountains to take class all day Saturday, and then walk 4.5 hours back to his village in the mountains. And so that's quite a commitment.
Grade than the person that lived 10 minutes
Yeah,
away.
he was always on time, but the guy 10 minutes away was always late. So we would always make fun of him that way. And pretty soon, Chamo, which was the pastor, when I was late, he only was, hey, hike him, he can make it, and you can't. And
At the moment, we have one professor who's also the director. So if you can remember, when you look at our card, pray for him. And also our students, just pray that they, that they can pay their portion, because we give a scholarship, but we don't pay for it all. Again, they have to pay for their books. And so it's kind of an ongoing. This year, we've kind of made a chat group, and I send out, hello, you got to start saving your money. Hello, we're going to be paying in, X amount of weeks. And so they're not really used to that, but they've gotten used to us. And they know that our prodding is out of love and not out of, you're doing it wrong. But it is kind of nice when it comes in and we've paid for stuff.
Yeah. So each step, whether it be church planting or the special projects or the Bible Institute, is always leadership training involved in that. Always. Whether it be being here on time, paying your money on time, planning out your project and showing us all the material that you're going to need, all through the step is leadership training, always. So this is another classroom here. You can see right here, if you can see it, he's not wearing any shoes. Socks. So when I was at Western Pentecostal, we had a basic dress code. So the reason for that is that when it rains, either in the morning or at night, the ground is muddy, and so they will wear rubber boots. And so that's the common thing. So before going into the church, you kick your rubber boots off because you don't want to make your church muddy. And so they're either going to be in socks or bare feet. In the bare feet, they usually just dump a lot of powder in their boots and put them on. You can see they're actually kind of wet or white, and that's from the powder on their feet. And their feet are flat because that's what they wear as rubber boots all the time, or they go barefoot. And so it's funny because we have a guy that come and he wanted to do an evangelistic thing, and he wanted people to come up for prayer, and no one came up. And then he says, does anybody need prayer for flat feet? And the people came up, and I was laughing later on with Rigoberto. We were just cracking up laughing. We're like, all the indigenous have flat feet. So you're going to get an altar full of people, right? And so we were just laughing and laughing about that. It's so much fun. So he's just teaching a little bit. He's a student teaching his peers in the classroom some kind of map or something. I don't think the video works. Okay. So now we want to talk about the Assemblies of God, Costa Rica, and this is the General Assembly. Like, we're having a pastors' conference here in Calgary soon in a few days. It's the same thing for them, but it's the entire country. All the pastors would come together, the Pentecostal denomination, and so we like to we help pay sometimes with the travel and the meals. A portion of it, not all of it, because remember, we're about 50-50. They have to put some skin in the game as well. And so we'll take them to these conferences so that they get some exposures and to hear ideas of other pastors and what they're doing in their churches. Just like Pastor Stephen, when he goes to a pastor's conference, how are you doing in your church? Have you done this? No, I haven't. That's interesting. Tell me more about it. And so you kind of network that way to see what other people are doing. And so that's a big factor in this conference here.
In this picture, there's Pastor Lydia in between us, and she's with her presbyter and Lemes we work with as well in Zone 7-1. And she's receiving her ordination after 7 years. And so it's a really big thing. I mean, you get credentialed, and then it's years later, right, that they get ordained. So they she asked if we'd take some photos because she didn't have any family there. And so I said, yeah, Gary will go up, second row or whatever. He'll sit there. So the president of Costa Rica, Assemblies of God.
To be the Dave Wells.
He came over to Gary and he said, Gary, would you pray for us over the students? And Gary's like, what? He goes, I can't do that. I mean, and prayer language is harder than just Spanish. And it's really hard to, if you're nervous, and you got all the U.S. missionaries, and you got all the pastors from the entire...
Even one of the people who ran to be the president...
of Costa Rica, the real president.
Like the prime minister of Costa Rica was there, and I was like, oh, brother,
So
I'm
he
in
came
trouble
back and he
now.
goes, "You're never gonna guess what happened." And I said, "Oh, it'll be fine." Like he's like, "No, I gotta write something out. I gotta do." He goes, "I don't even know why he."
I'm in total panic mode, right?
So I said, "You can do it. You can do it." But he had to stay up there to take pictures, and we didn't tell anybody the whole time. I'm in the back. I'm just like, "Lord, help him," because it's hard.
I was in the front speaking in tongues, thinking, I need something here.
So it came time for I think there were 23 people that were being credentialed, and then the 5 that were going to be ordained. And he got up there and he just prayed. I was like, that is from the Lord, because, he didn't have any mess ups. He was like kind of right with all the Spanish, and he spoke in tongues. And later I was like, wow, that. And he goes like, that was filler. That was filler. I had to, calm myself down. But here we are. Here's Lydia. She has a class. She's the one that has 2 classes. She's very passionate about Christian education. We're behind her 100%. It's so great to see that she's, continued on. She's got her ordination now, and we're behind them. This is a good example of what we do.
So afterwards, Pastor Rigoberto is right here. He's my main guy, my brother. And Lemes is another one. These are both presbyters of their zones. The Assemblies of God breaks up Costa Rica into zones.
District.
It's like districts. And so we work in 8-1, which is Rigoberto, and we also work in 7-1, which is Pastor Lemes, the presbyter Lemes. And so afterwards we go, and when we first started doing this, we were buying the meals for breakfast for them. Don't worry, I'll pay for it. It's in the budget. We'll take care of it. We come home, we lunch. But now I say, well, I'll get the breakfast. And then when we come home now, either Lemes or Pastor Rigoberto will say, no, we've got this. You already paid in the morning. We'll take care of you now. So we can see that the leadership training is starting to become 50-50 more, even in that area. They're thinking about it. And I told Rigoberto, I said, it's better if you pay for breakfast, but that's just what I do. And he says, why is that? I said, breakfast is always cheaper than lunch or dinner. So
yeah, I also wanted to mention Pastor Carlos is here in the front. And he just went yesterday he went on the 23rd. He's been having a lot of problems with his eyesight. And so I had a little bit of chat with him and his wife one day, and I said, Carlos, it could be your sugar. It could be diabetes, and you just don't know. And so it took him a long time to get an appointment, and he went yesterday. He had to go back for another referral. He has to go back on Monday for some more blood work. And they said likely it is his sugar. So he's just having such a hard time. He actually had to drop out of the Bible school class because he just can't see well enough to read. Mind you, he's driving a motorcycle, right? So if you can remember to pray for him, just that, either the Lord heals him or that they can really discover what it is and get him some help.
So this is Pastor Nancy, that's Rigoberto's wife, and of course Pastor Lydia, who we just talked about earlier. But Rigoberto and Pastor Nancy are just wonderful, wonderful people, and we just love them to death. They're great support for us as well. So Chiniquicha, who can say Chiniquicha? Have I done this here before with you guys? Okay, now say it with attitude like you're in a kung fu fight. No, I'm not scared of that, not even a little bit. Not even a smidgen. Come on. Chiniquicha. That's pretty good. So if you do that in the streets here, they might get scared. If you do that there, all you're saying in English is the root of a lemon tree. So it's not very intimidating at all. They're like, what? A root of a lemon tree? What are you trying to tell me here? So this is a community within Talamanca, Alto Talamanca, and it's the Feria, which is where they sell clothing, food, cows, cats, chickens, all kinds of things.
They sold a duck, and this little cow came to visit. So what they do is when they raise funds, for us to say, okay, you raise your part, it's all food sales. And it's 1,500 colones, $3, maybe $5 Canadian, for this plate of food. So that's a lot of plates of food to come up with, enough to buy the tin roof. The women here in the middle, they cook over the fire, and they were raising funds for the women to go to a retreat in September. And so normally when they do this, it's about 300,000 colones. So double that for US, add a little more so about $800, I think, Canadian. And made 800,000 colonies that day. Now, mind you, they bring all this food. This is the thing. They bring all this food to donate. They cook, and they're working so hard, and then they buy the food, right? And for us, okay, so maybe it would be better to just donate, the funds that you would need to purchase the food, but that's not how they do it. The community comes and eats as well, and so, they do a great job.
When they sell a chicken or a duck, they put it in a plastic bag, tie the bag with just its head sticking out. So it's live, and then you can see them walking home with their little bag of chicken, and that chicken's going, "This is great," and they're thinking, "Yeah, it's going to be really good." Fried chicken. So we got Bananitos, a special project, just to give you an example. It's not wood construction, it's more metal. And so here we helped build it's a kitchen and a comedor where they would eat, like a cafeteria area. And above it was like a pastor's apartment, but it's for like guest speakers would come and stay in the apartment at this church.
It's also Sunday school room.
Yeah, so we're building the septic there, and I'm not very good with smells. And so I said, well, because the bathrooms are right there for the church. I said, so where's the old septic? And they said, well, right here. But that's where they start digging. And I'm like, okay, I'm only going to be here for like another 5 minutes, and then I'm out. I'm gone. And they're going, and it's getting deep. You can see right here in this picture, it's getting deep. And I'm like, man, they're getting deeper. I said, so where is the old septic? And they're like, oh, over there, way over there. I'm like, whew, that was close, because I was not interested in that at all. So we were putting in the new septic for the church and for the apartment and the kitchen and all that. So that's just a little bit of an example of some of the special projects we do. It could be bathrooms. It could be a roof. It could be a million different things. It could be ceramic, tile in the kitchen, things like that. Let's see. What else we got here?
And like we said, mostly school or Sunday school rooms. That is the biggest thing. Now we also help some with public school. We had a church in, we got to wrap it up here.
Yep.
Had a church in Vancouver, said we have a little lemonade stand for back to school. We want to raise some funds for you for school. But school runs February to December, mid-December. And then it's summer break. And so I said, well, we'll wait on that until school starts again in February. So this is the Indigenous classroom up in Los Angeles. And in the next picture, this is them again. And you can see they have their shoes on. Must have been a not muddy day. Most of them have their shoes on. Some are in their socks. Next. This is
us driving the things in. This video works great. So we're driving up into the church in Gabilan Canta. Gabilan Canta means the singing hawk. And so this is what this community is. And we're dropping off the school supplies. So you can see we do have four-wheel drive vehicle as well to get into some of these places.
So from here, we just dropped the supplies off, and then they had somebody that walked them up 2 hours, and we'll show you a picture here in a second. This is the church in Gavilan Canta. We actually helped with the kitchen on that side, and there's those nice bathrooms.
Yeah.
Once again.
And that's the church that is right there that they would have. So.
Yeah, and then next one. So the girl here on the left or the right, she's got the whiteboard on her head, and up she goes.
This is a different school after we dropped that off, and she's walking 2 hours by Indigenous standard, which is 3 hours by our standard, because they walk so much faster than we do.
So it was basic supplies, but I didn't want to do like backpacks and all that kind of stuff, and so this is actually classroom supplies, and in that is a laminator. And the teacher right away sent me a bunch of stuff that she was working on with letters and everything. So it was a real big blessing for them. The church raised $400, and then we spent about $1,000. So we added to those funds.
So we asked the director if we ever came back with a team, because we want to plant a church in Oro Chico. It's another school that we worked on. And I said, so if we bring a team, can we sleep in the school? And she says, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And I said, could we play with the kids and entertain them with games and stuff like that? Absolutely, no problem. And so that's not generally allowed in Costa Rica, but because we helped them with the bathrooms, we have our foot in the door now that when teams come, we can evangelize their children. And also, we've been working with the families and the parents and stuff. So when we plant a church in Oro Chico, we have the people coming to church right away because we've already developed that relationship with them. And so it's really neat to have that opportunity. So it's another one.
These are the children here. And they all do not have their shoes on because it must have been muddy. And so they're all outside.
So in school, they're learning to speak Spanish. When they're young, they speak their native language. So when they go to school, they learn to speak Spanish, and that's to help them in the future with commerce and stuff. When they're selling their platinos and stuff, everybody speaks Spanish, of course. But in their own communities, they speak their own language, which is wonderful. So, adios, Costa Rica. Hello, Canada. This is how we come home. So there's our plane flying out. It's a 12-seater plane, and with Costa Rica's, Canadians would go to the front of the plane and sit down and fill it from the front back because the aisle is only 6 inches wide. But no, not in Costa Rica. You get in the plane, you sit in the back seat, and let everybody else stick their rear end in your face as you're trying to get to the seat to the front because it's only a 6-inch aisle. So regardless to say, there's no peanuts on this flight or anything. And then we're flying out. But it doesn't look like it's going.
So we just want to say thank you to the church here, to Abundant Springs, for investing in missions, I know that you have needs in your community, and I'm thankful that you're meeting them. I know you guys are, and within your church as well. But we're thankful for your support for what we do in Costa Rica, and those pastors that are there, the students, they're thankful, and they want you to know. They don't know anything about Canada. They just know it's far, far away. We send them pictures, and so thank you very much.
Yeah, we're so thankful for the teamwork, teaming up with you guys and you guys with us, and it is a great honor to. I love coming back to Pincher Creek. It's wonderful to see all of you. Thank you, pastors.
Pastor.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, let's give them another round of applause. So, as a church, we already have designated in our church budget money that we are donating as a church to help the Heinrichs with their ministry. They're longtime missionaries of ours. I think we've been with them since they were trying to get their funding together to go to Costa Rica. Pretty much 2010. Okay, might have been a little after that because I got here 2013. So but anyways, they've been a great blessing to us, and I know it's been just wonderful to be able to pour into them. Keep praying for them, for all of their stuff there. Whenever we get their monthly newsletter, we always put that on our Facebook page. We also try to update the links on our website. They always have prayer requests, a little bit about what's going on in there, so keep them in your prayers, as well as if in addition to what you normally give to this church for what we're doing here, and out of that we support the Heinrichs, if you'd like to give a little bit more, maybe you're sitting there just going like, yeah, the economy is so good, I have extra cash, and I'd really like to give it to some people that are doing good things. All you have to do to support them is when you're giving to the church there, if you want to designate a little extra to them, just make a note. If you're e-transferring, just put in there, hey, this is the amount that's actually my normal giving or my tithes, offerings, whatever you want to call it. And this year I'd like to give to the Heinrichs, okay, or Missions H, if that's easier, Costa Rica, however, we're smart enough to figure it out. You can do that just all the normal ways, e-transfer, credit card giving online, or just in cash or check. Throw that in an envelope and put it in the back there, and we'll make sure that all of that gets over to them, and anything that is designated to them is additional. That's on top of our regular giving. And so I just want to thank you guys again. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you, guys.